Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on the Craft of the Draft channel. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to be taking a look at the best medium forwards in the draft class. We're going to be doing a position audit about the top 6 players as we see them in the 2024 crop. So those players are Cooper Hinds, Archer Day-Wicks, Sam Toner, Ned Bowman, Tyler Welsh and Josh Murphy. And the skills that we're going to be breaking them down into are power, athleticism, marking, scoreboard, impact, and ground balls. I've rated each player out of 5, which is going to inform my discussion. We'll start with Cooper Hinds, who's probably viewed on this list as being the best of those medium forwards, those players that aren't quite key position. They're often the types of players that can pinch hit in the midfield as well, and they've got that ability at ground level to really hurt you by being clean below their knees. I think Cooper Hinds' power is one that is really, really strong. We've seen it this year. His athleticism is really good as well. He can take a contested mark. He's very good at hitting the scoreboard. He's got that trademark ability to kick goals from stoppage, and I like his ground balls as well. But the strongest categories for me were power and scoreboard impact. Yeah,
the power is what stands out with his game every time. It feels like he kicks the same goal every time he kicks a goal, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's that ball goes to ground inside 50, is about the 25 metres out, snaps around his body, it goes in. That's the type of goals that he can score. The only, and I agree with what you said, the only category that's not here, which is what I think puts him down the order in this draft, is he can go not missing, but he definitely has his periods of absence during games where I think that was evident in their prelim against Sandy. Has a massive first quarter, gets on the scoreboard, goal assists, impact of the midfield, and then that second and third is a big drop off, and then he comes back a bit in the fourth. So it's finding that consistency in his game, which I do think he's been able to do. It's not. I don't think it's a major dig on his game, because we've seen games 100% where he's there for all 4 quarters and doing his role. But I think he's the most complete in this list, where you've got the capacity to move him to the midfield as well.
Ties into the criticism some have over his work ethic as well, in terms of work ethic on field. So I guess his conditioning and fitness, but he certainly worked hard to get that a lot stronger. The rest of these players are probably viewed as being 40 plus, but there's a few of them in this category. So probably we'll start with Archer Day-Wicks. He's the type of player out of all of these that comes across to me as being the most versatile. You could throw him into the midfield or on the wing, and he'd have the skill set to complement the skills you need there. And his power is quite strong, his athleticism as well, and I think those skills are transferable to other positions. So I think that's why you could play him elsewhere. He can take a contested mark. His scoreboard impact is quite strong, and his ground balls as well. So when I look at him, he's the sort of player that is ranked down probably a little bit because he hasn't had the year we would expect. But when you to watch a 3 or 4 minute highlights video of Archer Day-Wicks, you tick off all of these categories quite comfortably. It's just we probably have seen it too sporadically this year, which is why he's going to fall, and then he might end up being a draft bargain.
Well, he's interesting. I reckon his body changed over the off season. He put on a bit of size, and he's almost put himself into a new role as a small forward. When I watched him last year, he was a lot sneakier in that inside 50, and maybe that's just the nature of being a bottom ager and there's not as much attention on you. But this year I felt like he had a bigger role around the stoppage, and that was why his game changed. He wasn't able to spend as much time on the scoring goals aspect. It was how can you impact when it's not looking towards goal, which I think he was able to do. But then people look at him as that forward type. It's like, well, is he kicking the goals he needs to kick, and things like that. I think that Metro Vic Country game, you saw that, especially at the end of the game, that mark he took, that's the type of play he's evolved into, and I think he'll continue to evolve into. But it was a matter of probably just wasn't finding that consistency until a bit later in the season. But I think he's got as much potential as someone like a Cooper Hinds, but he'll probably fall a bit later in the draft.
Yeah, I think that's fair. His decision-making is very strong as well. I think that's an underrated element of his game, and his pressure is quite good, which it needs to be. He projects as a sort of player that'll be a 12 to 16 touches per game sort of player, but his involvement is going to be a lot greater because he's got the ability to apply pressure, and I think his decision-making improved as the year went on. We'll move now to Tyler Welsh. You watched more of Tyler Welsh than I did. For me, his power really stood out, and his overhead marking. He's got that ability to turn a game in 10 or 15 minutes. He is pretty good at hitting the scoreboard a couple of times. When he does that, he's probably another one that can go missing. It is quite a difficult role, the medium forwards role, and probably a little bit less sold on what he's done at ground level.
Ground level was one that it was interesting when I was thinking about it, because he shows glimpses of being really clean and mobile in that sense. There's other times he can seem like he's a step behind and struggling to get himself onto it quickly and be proactive in that sense. But I think when you're drafting him for his power, the athleticism in the air to take a contested mark, and he's good for 4 or 5 goals a game, which you know what you're getting, and I think Adelaide will live with that, to be quite honest. Outside of 50, I don't think his impact was as great as it should be. He did show glimpses. He does try and push himself up, but he's not the most mobile type to keep moving up and back. Endurance certainly isn't his main strength. But for scoreboard impact, for marking, is a 5 out of 5 for that sense. And whether he can go missing or not, at the end of the day, you're looking at how many goals he kicked, and he's probably going to have 4 or 5 on the board.
Yep. Josh Murphy's the next one we'll look at from the Murray Bushrangers. You've liked him a little bit more than probably what I have, so I'll let you lead the discussion. The only thing I'll say is I just question whether the power that he's got and the way he kicks his goals is transferable at the next level. He plays one out at 193 centimetres, and I don't think there's a lot of players that do that, and I don't think his ground level game's probably good enough to warrant selection at his height.
Well, I agree for the most part, but I will defend him on the sense that we saw for the Allies, it's not only that one out game he can play. He's kicked a lot of goals from open play where he's able to, push opponents away, get himself in good spots. I think it was a goal in the first game against SA he kicked. He's deep in the pocket. He's working against a few bodies. I think he understands that he needs to be a bit more versatile inside 50. Outside of forward 50, again, that's probably where the question marks are. What else is he going to do to be productive? I do think his goals can come from other avenues. That's the only defence I have. I mean, he's kicking 6, 5, 4 goals. He's had a similar season to Tyler Welsh in terms of productivity, probably a bit less at national championships level. It's just whether clubs see any growth in him in that side of the game.
Ned Bowman from South Australia, he's one that when you look at athleticism, you straight away mark him highly. He's got that ability to leap and sort of move that not many players in this draft class have got, and through that he's able to be really good above his head, and that's where a lot of his goals come from as well. But he's probably one that... I don't want to call him one-dimensional. I think that's really harsh, and I really like him as a player, but I think there are other facets of his game that he could develop, that when you look at Archer Day Wicks, you talk about that versatility, and Cooper Hinds has got that ground-level game, and he's also got the marking and power. I'm just not sure if Ned Bowman is as multifaceted. Would you agree?
To an extent. I still think he's got the attributes like his speed and athleticism. He's got the marking, which I think are developmental type of attributes at the next level. So I think whilst maybe he's not shown it as much at this level, I do think there's still quite a lot of room for a player like that. And my personal views of the SANFL level isn't as high as what the Talent League level is. I think there's still a lot of development left for an SA player compared to what a Vic player is, where they've already got quite a lot of development at this stage. So that's where I'd sit on him.
And then the other one is Sam Toney. To me, he's unique in this list in that he's literally a medium forward, and that's probably where you play him. He doesn't necessarily possess great swathes of power, or he's not necessarily someone who's super clean below his knees to the point where it really stands out, but it's his ability to really leap, use his athleticism, take a mark, and then hit the scoreboard that has really shone. But he's so raw that it's quite hard to project the way his career will develop, but certainly showed glimpses, particularly in the wet, that he does have that clinical ability above his head.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to add anything because, unfortunately, you saw this great game he played and then he got injured. So I actually never got to see him play in person, which was disappointing. But I'll 100% take your word for it on what you believe was Sam Toney.
And certainly has done it at senior level as well, at local senior level, kicking 50 goals in 13 games for Narre Warren. But that sums up this video. Thanks for tuning in to our position audit about the medium forwards. Make sure you check out our other position audits on our channel and other videos across YouTube and Instagram.